All right, everybody. Guess what? It's another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen, where I interview all those people responsible for creating all the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. Of course, I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen. And today, my guest is Bryan Reynolds. And Bryan is a makeup and effects artist who has worked on all kinds of stuff, all kinds of movies, all kinds of shows, from Ozark, Stranger Things, Night School, Walking Dead, pretty much you name it. He has done it. He's been there. He's worked on some Marvel TV shows. And his most recent thing out right now, which you guys really need to go check out, is Falcon and Winter Soldier. So go check out that series. And he was actually the department head of the second unit on that. So pretty big deal. Bryan and I talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about how he got started in this and went to school up in Canada to get his education and really come out of this as an amazing makeup artist and effects artist. We talk about the time he worked on the movie Lincoln, where Steven Spielberg was the director on that. We also talk about his first movie, which he just kind of got a recommendation for, ended up with, called Southern Gothic. It's evidently about Southern vampires. So I'm interested in actually looking that one up and watching it. We talk about what it's like just in general to be in his position and all the different stuff he's worked on, from, like I said, from Homeland to Ozark to Stranger Things, all kinds of really cool things he's been on. We also talk about who he thinks is the nicest celebrity that he's ever worked with, and he's worked with a ton of them. And what Jason Bateman's like on set of Ozark, even when he is scolding someone for doing the wrong thing. And it sounds like you will not believe how incredible Jason Bateman is as a person. But yeah, all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely check this one out. Let me know what you think about it. Like it, thumbs up it, subscribe, leave some comments, all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to hearing what you think. Tell me how you got started in doing hair and makeup and effects makeup and all that shit. Because some of the stuff, man, and we'll go over and we'll show it in a little bit. Some of the stuff is nuts that you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that started off as just I was a young kid messing around, and I was watching horror movies and things that I liked of the time, Freddy Krueger and all that kind of stuff, and was making up my friends and horrifying my parents, and then then I decided, as I got a little bit older, it started developing into other things, as opposed to just being involved in like the horror stuff. In fact, really, I kind of grew out of that and enjoy more of the character creating characters like they do on like the Coming to America movies and things like that, or Narnia or different shows like that. I much prefer that kind of stuff than the gore and the guts. Not that I won't do it if I'm paid to do it, but as far as what I enjoy doing, I prefer the characters. I just find it more interesting.
Did you have to go to school for this? You take classes? Did you just figure this out on your own? How did that all happen? Do you have a mentor?
Yeah. Well, so I bopped around on my own for a while trying to figure it out, and then I realized that that was only going to take me so far, and it was actually quite a bit of a struggle for me, because I was also studying as a musician as well, and playing in bands, and although honestly I kind of had come to the point where I was really moving towards being more of a studio session touring drummer, as opposed to playing in a band or something like that. So I applied to Berkeley and got accepted, and was possibly going to be going in that direction.
Damn.
And but at the same time, I was doing makeup on the side. I'd done two small films, independent films, and really enjoyed that. And figured that was a possible. I up until that point, I never thought about it actually being a living until I did a couple of films and worked with people that were actually doing it. And then here we are in North Carolina. I'm like, I didn't think that I could do this. I thought that I was going to have to move to California or some other place to do it. It never even occurred to me when I was younger that it was something that I could do locally. And so I had a long talk with my uncle, of all people, and he. Not that my father isn't a man of wisdom either, but when you listen to your dad,
Well,
you
yeah,
don't always want to listen to what they have to say. I think of many things that he said to me over the years, especially when I was younger, that I was like, yeah, Dad, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. And then later you're like, no.
It's amazing how years later you think back to that and you go, oh, damn. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I love that Mark Twain quote, which is this is paraphrasing, but he said he was amazed how intelligent his parents had become while he was away at college.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very, very paraphrasing, but I think it's
something
pretty
like
funny.
The smarter they got, my parents, the older I got, the smarter they got, or something like that.
Yeah. It's along those lines, and it's really definitely true.
Yeah.
But after talking to him, he was he basically said to me that he thought that and this is coming from a man who's like a surgeon, a doctor that doesn't have any background in music or the industry or anything like that. And he was smart enough to say, he said, well, I think that if you're going to be a professional musician and to do it at the level of making a living, and if you're going to have a family and all that kind of stuff down the road, you probably need to be in New York or LA. Yeah. And there's probably a union or something for all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's true. There is. And he says, and also people are always going to need makeup, even if they're dead, sitting in a casket. And at the time, it just kind of struck me in a certain way of what he had to say. So I went to my dad and I was like, hey, Dad, because at this point I had not gone to college yet. I graduated high school, but I was a great student in certain classes and not a good student in other classes. And so things like math and geometry and, well, it's math, but you know what I mean? It's
you're great exactly math easy is what for you're me. Saying.
Yeah, right. But I was great at history and other classes, English and things like that. So when I was finished with high school, I needed to give myself a break. And it was never a situation where I thought I was not going to go back to school. I just needed to get my head on and figure out what I wanted to do, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And like I said, I was playing in a band.
Did you and your brother ever play together?
We tried.
Yeah,
we tried to work that out, but that just didn't materialize.
Yeah,
the way that either one of us would have liked.
Right.
So when I came back from college, we jammed a little bit, but it wasn't I think what either one of us wanted it to be.
Yeah, I get that.
But so I went to my dad, and at this point, like I said, I had not been to college yet. I was like, hey, Dad, I'm looking at maybe going in this direction, maybe doing makeup, as a living. And he already knew that I had, been dabbling with it, for years, since I was around 12 or so. So it wasn't a surprise to him. And he was like, well, if you're going to do something like that, you probably want to know what you're doing, right? And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, well, there's probably schools for that kind of thing, or college or something like that, right? I was like, well, yeah. And I already knew this in my head, but I wasn't surprised. I wasn't expecting him to say that. And he's like, well, why don't you do your research and come back and we'll talk about it. So I did, and I did research on a couple different schools, and we got in the car and we visited all three of them in a week.
Damn.
So we went down to Florida. I went to Joe Blasco, and that wasn't what I was looking for.
Right.
And then, well, actually, no, nothing. It was only two schools. We were going to go to three, but the other school that I went to, went to go check out, which was the London School of Makeup, which was in Toronto, Canada.
Oh.
And so we drove all the way up to Canada to go visit that school. And and it was everything that I wanted it to be. I mean, the instructors were actually professional makeup artists, and they were actually working and had credits. And back then you couldn't look at them up on like IMDb,
right.
But they knew what they were doing. And and the school was really cool. And it was also it was a combination program that they were doing through the University of Toronto. So all of my makeup classes would be done at the London School of Makeup, and then all of my other classes like production and design and art and design and the other things that I took while I was there was done through them. And then once you got into the program at a certain point, you would actually get the opportunity to be on set as a PA and do things like that. So that gave you a lot of experience. So that by the time that you got out into the real world, you had actually already been on set for, so had a bit of experience doing it. So you weren't like a deer in the headlights. Yeah, so I did that, and it was a wonderful experience. Lived up there for quite some time through the whole program and everything, and didn't really want to leave because I met a girl, and
I'll do that to you.
Yeah, and but it was a life-changing, especially coming from a kid from North Carolina. It was a life-changing experience. One that I look on like every day. So.
Damn, man. So had you already been? I don't know if you remember. We did one job together out of town in Tallahassee, Florida.
Yeah.
Had you already been there by that point?
I had not.
Yeah, that figures.
No.
That explains why you went on that job.
No, I had not done that at that time, because I think that when you and I did that job, I was like maybe 22.
Yeah.
Maybe 21, something like that. And
I forever ago, because I was in my. How old was I? I don't know how old I was. I was either in my late 20s. I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s.
I think you're around 20s, 27, 28.
Yeah.
I think you were.
Yeah.
Because I'm 48 now.
Yeah, I'm 51. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So not as old as I thought you were then. So we weren't as yeah. Well, what I mean is that we weren't as far apart in age as I thought.
Yeah, that explains why you went on that gig. And I was like, he's never come back. Because I didn't want to be there, but that's the only way I was making money at the time, was doing those for anybody listening. It was a huge group model test where you shot, what were we shooting, like 10 or 12 kids in a day or something like that, 2 or 3 looks a piece or something. And we weren't getting paid jack. I mean, we weren't being paid.
Yeah. I mean, at the time you think it's money.
Yeah.
I'm
getting paid. It was.
I remember us sitting at dinner after, I think the first day or something. I can't remember what it was, but instead of saying, "How do you think the day went?" you said, "How do you think you did?"
Well, I said.
Yeah, and so I'm like, well, I think it did okay. I think it was okay.
Did I say anything after that?
No, it was fine. It was just the way that they said it. And I was like, oh, well, I was, in other words, I think I felt I was a little on the defensive for a second, but it was fine. I think it was just your delivery.
Yeah, that's not shocking. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those where I'm surprised anybody does that, to do that many people in a day that fast. And
oh man,
money.
Well, I did that again, actually, with a friend of mine, Michael. What was Michael's last name? Anyway, a photographer named Michael that I traveled with, actually. This was after I was finished with school and came back to Charlotte. And
Michael Harrison?
No. Michael. Wow. Yeah. He's in LA now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he was great dude, great photographer. So he probably did well. Has done well for himself. But at the time he was in Charlotte for a little while, and he was like, "Hey man, I know hair's not really your thing, but we're not asking for much, just to smooth the shit out, and make it look okay, make him not look sweaty or whatever." And so this was for Cosmo magazine.
All right.
And it was a model search. And we went to every single state except for Hawaii and Puerto Rico.
Really?
And over the period of a year.
Wow. And
so, and we would literally travel. Sometimes they would fly us, and sometimes we would drive, and he loved Jane's Addiction.
Oh, okay.
Over and over and over. And so I came to love and hate them at the same time.
I bet you
Um,
did.
yeah, but yeah, that was for Cosmo, and it was an interesting experience. And I especially at the time, I got all kinds of photos for my portfolio. I'd say probably 98% of it wasn't useful,
Yeah.
but some of it actually ended up. Every once in a while, you get a guy or a girl who just had it. And you could not take a bad photo of them, no matter what you did. And then, of course, as you know, you had other people that were like tremendously attractive in person, and then they just turned into a weird gelfling.
Yeah. It's weird how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember this one girl specifically. She was so beautiful in person, but on camera, she literally looked like an elf, and not like in a good way.
Right.
That's why I said a gelfling. But she literally looked like that. But in person, she was beautiful.
It's weird because sometimes you get this person in person, they're, like you said, they're beautiful, and they get in front of the camera and you're like, what the hell happened? Then you have others, you see them in person, you're like, I don't see it. And then you put them in front of the camera and all of a sudden you're like, damn, all right, you are pretty.
When I met Olivia Wilde, it was like that. I mean, not that she's not an attractive person, but she's something about being on camera for her, man. Her features like all come together.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit beautiful, of course, beautiful, but it's just interesting what the camera does,
Yeah. What'd you do? What were you working on her for?
I actually met her at a party with some friends. Yeah. So it was like in a more of a, the kind of way that you'd actually like to meet somebody like that.
Right. Yeah.
Is like in a real circumstance. So we weren't working together. And she was with a bunch of other people. So that was lovely. But, let's see. Yeah, went to school, did that whole thing, came back and bounced around for a while. Went out to LA for a couple of years, and kind of back and forth. Really, I would go there for a while and then come back and go there. And I think my longest stint there was a year, and my shortest stint was around 6 months or so.
Right.
In between, because when I moved back, I actually moved to San Diego, which is where I loved.
Yeah.
I loved living there.
Nice.
And I had a crazy roommate, crazy in a good way. It was, but the place where we were right off of Garnet Boulevard, and you could like walk out to the edge of the sidewalk and see the ocean, and that was just like the best thing ever.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it wasn't an ocean view, but in 30 feet there was, so that was really cool. Yeah, that was really cool. And that was pretty, considering everything, that was pretty cheap rent too. But was there for a while, and then unfortunately I had to come back to Charlotte for the family emergency type of thing. And I came back to spend time with my grandmother and her last couple months living. And so that brought me back to Charlotte. And about that time, the film incentive in North Carolina was kicking back in. They had started it back up, and films are starting to come into town and small projects. And a friend of mine, Jade Wills, who's a hair and makeup artist in that area. I think she moved to Puerto Rico or something crazy like that, or Hawaii or something.
Yeah, I think I'd heard something about that with her. She moved somewhere like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she only does commercials, and she has no interest in doing like film and television whatsoever. So she gave the production my name, and they called me. And so I did this film, running on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
And also in between this time, I had been working at salons and things like that as well. Basically working as a makeup artist where I could, with photographers or with whoever. There was a long stint actually where I worked for cosmetic companies, being a representative for them. I was actually the East Coast trainer for Lancome Cosmetics for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
It's one of those things like, you're just trying to figure out kind of what works for you. And I was happy that I was, doing makeup and making a living. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but it was paying the bills, and it was better than working at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Which is what I did to work my way through college, so, So that film gave him the opportunity to get back into it.
Was it a small? I'm assuming it was a small film.
Relatively small film, but they had like, it was a couple $1 million budget.
Damn.
It's like 1 or 2 million.
Was it? Did you, when you got on set with that, were you freaked out? I mean, when you accepted this, were you like, I can handle this, I got it? Or were you like, okay, I think I can do this, and I'm very nervous.
A little bit of both.
Right.
Yeah. I was still young and arrogant enough to think that I knew something about something.
Right.
And but it was the perfect kind of project, for me at the time. It was a vampire film, called Southern Gothic. It's out there. You can watch it.
What was it called?
Southern Gothic.
Southern Gothic. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Are these
out
redneck
there.
vampires?
Oh yeah. And some of them are, but it's a
I'm gonna find that, man. I'm already interested in that. Just
oh man, it's so bad it's good.
Kind of like
actually the script was quite good. The script is, I read the script and I was like, wow, man, this is actually kind of interesting, because the way they set it up, and a Baptist preacher in the South gets bitten by a vampire, so then he becomes one, and so then he slowly starts making all of his parishioners vampires as well, so it's got a little bit of a Lost Boys.
I could see
thing.
that, like, with the right script and the right director, being kind of a cool movie.
Yeah. The director was Mark Young, and he's gone on to do a bunch of other stuff since then, and so I don't want to, I shouldn't knock the film too much, but it definitely had its moments. There was definitely some cool stuff in there, and that's where I got to meet a very good friend of mine, Yul Vasquez, who is a wonderful actor out of New York, and he also spends time in Miami, and we had a great time on that film, and he and I both had a huge love for Rush, and so it was Rush in the makeup trailer every day, rocking it out.
How long was that gig?
It was maybe a month and a half.
Okay.
Maybe 2 months. It's hard to remember how long it was exactly.
I guess, yeah.
If I could guess, I would say it was probably 6 weeks.
Okay.
That's about right, for a feature film.
6 weeks of Rush.
Anything short. Yeah. Right. Well, he loved Rush, but he also loved like really, really super, super heavy stuff like Sepultura and like all kinds of other things too. I mean, we could go as heavy in fact, it's funny, when we were first getting to know each other, I was like, what kind of music do you like, man? And he goes, oh, I don't know. I like heavy shit, man. I was like, heavy shit? Okay, like what? He named off a couple bands, like Napalm Death, and what was that one? Cannibal something.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Cannibal Corpse Bride or something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. And so, we would go straight into pretty thrashy screamo for a while, and which I was okay for a certain amount of it,
Yeah.
We just really hit it off and became good friends. And it's funny, he and I kind of went on our separate ways, and we would chat every once in a while, but keep in mind, this would have been 2006.
Yeah.
So,
that's where you can text everybody and Instagram.
Well, texting back then actually cost you something.
Right. Yeah.
It cost like 5 to 10 cents a text.
Yeah. And if you went out of your area, you had to pay roaming charges on your phone, which,
I'm
not calling you if I get out of my area.
So we chatted a little bit, and then he got on, I think sometime after that, he was on, I definitely know it was sometime after that. I just can't remember how long. He was on Magic City for that entire run of that show. I think that was on USA, I believe. Right. And he had a great character on that. And we just lost touch. And then he and I bumped into each other on a film. Would have been in 2019, and he and I he was sitting at a table with a couple other people that I knew, and I'd seen him around, but I hadn't, I haven't seen this guy in like almost 16 years,
Yeah.
And I'm now I have a beard and I'm not a wafy little scrawny thing like I used to be, or whatever. And I sat down at the table, with the others and everything, and he's talking and he stops and he goes, "Hey man, brother, do I know you?" I was like, "Yeah, actually you do. We worked on Southern Gothic together. I was your makeup artist. I'm Bryan." And he goes, "Bryan Reynolds." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, I think of you often."
Damn.
And so it was just like that. It was just really cool.
Cool.
And now we haven't lost touch at all. So we
Yeah.
talk probably weekly, actually. So
That's very cool, man.
But let's see. So I finished that movie, and then that movie starred William Forsythe.
Really?
And William, for some reason, really liked me, and he asked me to do 2 more films with him right after that.
Oh wow.
And then about that time, that's right when the TV series Homeland was starting up.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really a lot of local makeup artists in the area. I mean, in Charlotte, the only real makeup artists that are in town are going to be mostly, Sandy Fix and some of those gals that do mostly commercials and things like that.
Right.
And that's their bread and butter, and that's the world they like to live in. In fact, I remember Sandy came and worked with me on one of my shows that I was doing, and at the end of it, she's like, "Bryan, I don't think this is for me."
Right.
This is too much work for not enough pay. And of course that was still not like non-union stuff.
Right.
But
and it's days and weeks at a time, right? I mean, it's not one of these where it's like a commercial where you go and you shoot for 2-3 days and you're done. I mean,
well, yeah, and she's also used to, if you get a nice resume and commercials and everything, you can, in some cases, make a couple grand and, in 1 or 2 days, and literally work 1 or 2 days in the week, and you're set for like, for the whole week at least. I mean, like those commercial jobs, you only have to do like 1 or 2 of them a week, and you're good.
Yeah.
And she was like, this is a lot of work. But let's see. So Homeland was starting up, and I called I knew who the department head was because he was going to be a local person named John Bayless. And I called him up out of the blue, and it's so funny to think about me doing that because I was so nervous about calling him because I didn't know him at all. And he has a resume that's just incredible. Last the Mohicans, John Adams, like all this like heavy duty stuff. And I get him on the phone, and he was very, very nice, but he was very very straightforward. And he goes, "Well, you seem like a nice young man. So, why don't you come in? We're starting things up on Monday. Why don't you come to the trailer and meet us, and I can meet you in person and you can look at your portfolio and that kind of thing, And so I did. I went and I met with him, and he liked the stuff that I had, and he liked my attitude, and he liked my personality, I guess. And so, although because I was not union yet, he did bring me in wherever he could. But if there was a union person that was needing work or whatever, he had to always, ask them first. But at this time, being the fact that it's North Carolina, all of the union people were living down in Wilmington.
Yeah.
And there was work down there because of the tax incentive. So, if you're down there, you weren't really coming up to Charlotte for any particular reason if you didn't have to. So I worked on that show for 3 seasons. I think we did 3 seasons. And in the process of that, I got my union days and everything and got all that going. And then
that's not an easy thing to do without some help. Cause I was looking into it just for the photography part. And I'm like, Jesus, you got to have a lot of days and all the paper to back it up.
It's
not easy.
And with being a film and television makeup artist, You're only doing one or the other. You're only doing hair or makeup. So you're not crossing streams there at all. Obviously, if you're doing hair, you have to be licensed and have all this accreditation, and keep up all your skills. Every 6 months or a year or whatever it is that you have to do. As a makeup artist, you really have to do the same thing. We don't have a license, like a certification, like a cosmetology license.
Right.
But what we have is our accreditation is because we're union. And so since we've gone through that whole thing and through the training program and gone through the steps of all that, then, then you can trust us now.
Right.
or so they say.
So Homeland at this point, was Homeland the biggest thing you'd worked on, or was it
yeah, it was cool. It was crazy because I was working on Homeland and suddenly it's a success.
Yeah.
Like right from the gate. And that was crazy to see something that I'm working on, and I'm seeing billboards, as I'm driving, and then to meet Claire Danes and I've had a crush. I had a crush on her for years, take me back to Romeo and Juliet. Remember? And so that was really, but she was really nice. She, at that particular time, she was very much into especially the first season, she was very much into the character. And so she was doing more of a method type of thing.
Yeah.
So when she was on set doing her character, she was there, and I'm not saying that she wasn't, or I'm not saying she wasn't nice or difficult. I'm not saying that whatsoever.
Right, yeah.
I'm just saying she was her character when she was on set. So she was very, very intense and very focused on what she was doing. And then by the second season, she relaxed a little bit. And then third season, she had her baby. And so her baby was on set often.
Yeah.
And as soon as she had her baby, she was like a different person. She wasn't in character anymore. She was like, she would, as soon as they cut, she would be mom again and, grab her baby or whatever. And so that was neat to see her in that kind of
trip how that happens, man. I have a
circumstance.
Friend who, I was talking to his wife, and he's an actor, and he's all method, or he used to be. He's not really so much anymore. And at some point, he was playing a serial killer, and he would come home, but he would stay in character. And his wife, she said at one night at dinner, she said, "You got to stop this. You're scaring me. You're scaring kids. You got to stop this whole thing." And I think from that point on, he kind of calmed down on the whole method thing and just became his character on set, kind of a deal. But I can see how the whole mom thing will change you and turn you into a different person completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was actually kind of nice because she, like I said, by the second season, she had, relaxed a little bit as well, especially after getting accolades and things like that, for your performance. But that was really the springboard, man, was that show and my relationship with John Bayless, the department head. He really mentored me for several years and gave me the best talking to I've ever been given, because I was late one day.
Yeah.
And I mean, this definitely is something that's become my mantra. And that is, you're never, there's no such thing as on time. You're either early or you're late.
Yeah, that's what my wife is. Say, if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was difficult at first because my family procrastinates everything. I think my mom will procrastinate dying eventually one day. She just procrastinate. It's like, Mom, shouldn't you be gone by now? And I keep meaning to, but I just can't.
I'll get to it.
I'll get to it someday. But I learned to be on time, and I learned, I learned to be early, and I learned the stress relieving feeling of being early.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to be there at 10 o'clock and you get there at 9:30, and you got time to like chill out and they provide breakfast for us. So go and have your breakfast and chill out and have a coffee, and then go to work, and it's just much nicer than arriving right there at 10 o'clock. And even like for us, even when we're supposed to be there at 10 o'clock, we're not going to get our first person until, 10:25, 10:30 or what, something like that. Cause we have a 18 minutes like grace period after we get there. But, I just learned that it's just better. And so, but on this day I was in traffic right around the corner, and I'm already 5 minutes late, but I could literally see where base camp is in the parking lot. I could literally see where it is. I just can't get in there because of the traffic and everything. And I got in there and I walked into the trailer, and my actor was already sitting in my chair.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. My actor was already sitting in my chair, and John stops me and he goes, James is already in your chair. Do what you need to do. We'll talk later. I was like, okay. And so I took care of James. And then after everything was done, everyone left the trailer to go to set. And he called me up into his the top part of the trailer, which we call the crow's nest. Called me up there, and he goes, so you were late today? I was like, yes, sir. I was. I really apologize. He goes, that won't happen again, will it? I said, no, sir, it will not. He's like, listen, you have a really good work ethic. You're a good guy and everything, and you're a good artist, but you need to understand that this kind of thing is not acceptable. I was like, yes, sir, absolutely. I hear you 110%, and the fact that he never raised his voice, he didn't yell at me. He was never condescending, any of those types of things, that spoke more. If he had yelled at me, I would have shut down.
Yeah.
If he had raised his voice to me, I would have shut down, especially coming from him. Now what's funny about it is that as I'm speaking about him, I'm making him come off as this kind of like stern, type of person.
Right.
But after I worked with him for a number of years, he started to let me see the other side of him, which was the prankster and the jokester.
Really?
And doing not horrible pranks, but he would prank people and do things to them. And it was hilarious. And I just didn't know that he had this whole funny side to him, because he had never shown it to me.
Right.
And
so
so
the best one that you can remember?
You'd have to ask me a question like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to come up with a specific instance, but yeah, he was funny. And so it's interesting that he had that both sides to his personality.
How long did it take before he let you see that side?
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because what I was doing for in the first couple of years of working with him, I was doing, I was an additional makeup artist. So I was doing whatever additional makeup they needed to be done,
yeah.
Which almost always was like the background actors, the background extras and everything.
Right.
And then every once in a while they would have a day player actor that would come in that needed to be made up. And usually I would take care, not usually, but oftentimes I would take care of the day player for that day. In other words, not a reoccurring supporting actor, but someone that's just coming in for the day or maybe 2 days, whatever the case may be in that particular episode. And so I would take care of them in that circumstance. But usually I was in the tent doing the background people. And, so the only time I was really around him and the other people for like an extended period of time would be while we're on set, and while we're sitting there on set, we're waiting for things to happen, basically, and slowly but slowly I started to see his little things, like he'd like put a sticker on somebody's back, and it said something, or just these little things, nothing ever like really harmful, but just like little tiny little things. And then he would just tell these like really, really bad dad jokes that were borderline inappropriate for a professional situation,
yeah,
but never crossed that line.
Right.
So it was fun seeing him that kind of circumstance. But he, after working, I was working on Homeland, and I was not full time on that show. I was only there maybe a couple of days a week or whenever they needed me. And at the same time, there was a show in Charlotte that was also shooting called Banshee.
Yeah.
And that was for Cinemax. So I started working on that show as well. And so between the two of them, I was bouncing back and forth, and that was really nice. Working fairly consistent between those two shows. And then I interviewed for the key position for Banshee for the third season, I think it was. And I was against another friend of mine that she was going for the same job. And in the end, the department head chose her for, honestly, I think it was actually a good choice because, with that show, there was lots of nudity. Yeah. And having another female there with lots of, it was a better choice. And so she brought me on, and I was kind of a third on that, like a third makeup artist, but kind of however she needed me. And she was, really interesting lady from Greece originally, really tall, beautiful, had a presence about her. She and I always got along very well. But I understand it's not always the case. I don't know. I saw both sides.
Yeah, I know people like that too. I get along with them fine, but everybody else complains about them constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have stories on that one, but I'm not going to go into it because it would be it'd be like I said, she and I always got along well. So I was working between those two shows, and then whatever else kind of happened, whatever else was coming through, and then a very good friend of mine was working in the North Carolina government, and she was like, "Well, Bryan, this the tax incentive is not going to be renewed. It's coming to a sunset, and it's not going to be renewed." And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "We've got, we have 40,000 signatures on this petition."
When McCrory was governor, right?
Yeah. And she said, "Well, big business has gotten involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not going to happen. They're shutting it down." I mean, I know what happened, about that whole situation, but it's one of these things,
McCrory became a full-on politician when he became governor, it seemed like. And
he did. And let's put it this way. He didn't do anything to make the incentive go away, but he also didn't do anything to make it stay.
Right. Yeah.
He just stayed out of the way while big money stepped in and shut the film business down. And I tell you what, man, it was like, when it happened, it was like a light switch.
Oh yeah.
Homeland was getting ready to go into their fourth season. Banshee was maybe they're going into their third. I don't know. It's kind of hard to remember. And Banshee decided to move to Pennsylvania or someplace like that. Yeah. Which is where it's supposed to be taking place anyway. Right. They decided to move there or something, and Homeland decided to go to South Africa. Yeah. Because Johannesburg looks a lot like Israel.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, not Israel, Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it does. When you look at pictures, it's like, wow, because you've got the ocean and the city and then the mountains right behind it. It's pretty crazy how much they look alike. But so they went there, and they invited John to go with them, and he decided not to do that. He decided to stay here instead, because he didn't want to go to South Africa for 7 months.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I thought that I would think that would be really cool. Let's go, But when you're 60 something years old, he's like, no, I'll stay here.
Background jumping up, going, "Hey, I'll go."
Yeah, right. So that was the end of that, pretty much, and we knew that was the end, and so my lady and I at the time were like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, LA is out of the question because at this time I'm union, but my union is based out of New York, and the union in California is a different. We're part of IATSE, which is the whole cloud, or the whole larger union.
Right.
But our locals, we have separate locals. I'm 798 out of New York, and LA is 706.
Okay.
And they do things very differently. And it doesn't transfer, unfortunately.
Oh.
So
if you're going to be part of both, you'd have to pay dues for both.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And you have to get your days separately.
Real. So if you're doing a union gig for the one out of New York, that couldn't count towards the LA. Is that right?
Correct.
So you'd have to do something that's totally non-union to get the hours.
Yeah. And unless you're called, unless you get lucky and an actor or producer like brings you in, which that happens sometimes, an actor or a producer really likes you and wants you to come into the show. And, I mean, that's not going to happen on like a big budget show, but on like a lower budget union show, that kind of thing happens. Or the other thing that happens quite often is, which is actually what happened to me at a certain point too, where you're doing a smaller independent film, and then either in the middle of it or before they actually go into production, the union steps in and strikes happen, and suddenly they realize that they can't get away with being non-union because their budget is so high. Basically, they're thinking of it from a budgetary point of view,
right.
And they want to pay everyone as little as possible,
mm-hmm.
And they don't want to pay anyone benefits. They don't want to pay into any of that kind of stuff, and so the union steps in and says, "Well, wait a minute, you guys are doing a project with a pretty decent budget, and to pay everyone their benefits is only going to be this much more. It's not as much as people, it's only going to be such and such more.
Right.
So why don't you pay everybody like what they should be worth, and pay their benefits, and you're going to get better people, and it's going to be great for everyone all the way around."
Yeah.
And of course they don't want to do that, but when they're literally getting ready to be shut down because the crew is standing saying, "Yeah, I want that too."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if you're already a union person working on that show, which you're allowed to do, you're allowed to work on non-union projects, if that's for whatever reason. And but if that comes down to, we're going to strike or we're going to walk, it's like, okay, let's walk.
Yeah.
And I've been there and I've done it, it almost always works. Occasionally you'll have a producer that just, sticks their head in the sand. And I know of one specifically, not producer, but a production that they're like, okay, well, we're going to all walk. Or either we're all going to walk, or you can flip over and become union, and everybody can get paid what they're supposed to get paid, and et cetera. And he goes, then you're all fired. So he fired the entire crew.
Wow.
And hired an entire new crew. Actually, he had already hired the new crew before he fired the other crew.
Well,
so the new crew is literally coming in one morning and passing the old crew as they're leaving.
Oh, wow.
I mean, oh yeah. And then the new crew found out like what he was up to. And so then they walked out. It was the whole thing, man. But yeah, that kind of stuff happens. But if you're on a show and that kind of thing happens, where it goes from being non-union and flips over to being union, oftentimes the local union, which would be 706 or 798, depending on where you are, is they'll offer you the opportunity to join.
Right.
Or the days that you're working on that show will count towards your days, towards everything else.
Yeah.
Which is more of what they're doing these days. Used to, they would just say, give you your union card. Here you go. Oh, by the way, and pay us $4,000. But they'd let you in. And now they're being a lot more stringent about that. Both 706 and 798.
You would think that just for the money reasons, they'd be like, all right, you've done this many shows, this many hours. Come on over and give us some cash.
Well, true. And that just depends on the different unions do things a little bit different from each other. And I mean, yeah, it's just, and it gets into, there's some more liability things in there as well. So it gets a little sticky in there, but, but that's one of the ways that you can get in, is on a show that flips, as we say.
Right.
And, um, and that's actually what ended up happening to me. I had gotten all of my days. I was set and I was ready to go. And then I did this, and it was in between. It was in between in Homeland, because Homeland was down for the season, and this other film came along, and um, um, and I got the job as department head on that. So that was really cool, and it was for a romantic comedy kind of thing. It was a pretty decent budget, considering I think it was around 10 million. But they were trying to be cheap, and they were trying to do things a little different way, and Union stepped in, and luckily it never got to the point to where we all had to do anything. None of the crew ever had to step in and do anything. It was, all the negotiations happened before that ever happened. But it flipped, and because it flipped, that means that the time that I was working on that show counted towards my days that I needed, and so that's how I ended up getting in eventually.
All right, well, that's cool.
But sometime after that, I'm not exactly sure how the time frame is, because as you know, things tend to blur.
Yes.
John Bayless got a call for, they needed some help on the movie Lincoln, with Steven Spielberg's Lincoln.
Yeah.
He was nice enough to give them my name, and so I went up to Virginia, and I walked into the tent, because I was going to be doing, again, background, was going to be doing any like name players or anything like that.
Right.
And I walked into the tent, and I met the department head and key. They were right there, and it was Lois Burwell and Kenny Myers, and I'd never met these people before. I'd spoken to Kenny briefly on the phone, but I had not met Lois yet, and it was just so wonderful. They literally met me with hugs and kisses. It was like amazing, and so it was very, very cool, and a very, very warm like environment. And so I go, and they go, "Here's your station is going to be right over here." And so they take me over to where my station is going to be, and I'm start setting up my things and start looking around, and I started recognizing some of the other makeup artists that were there. That guy has an Oscar. That guy has several Emmys. That girl over there. Yeah, I was surrounded by people who had tremendous amounts of experience all around me. And here I am, just barely in the union, barely in, and I'm doing this, mega budget film. And it was really a surreal moment, to be in that situation, to be really surrounded. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, intimidating, but also exciting,
Does it raise your game a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And I met a lot of people in that circuit, during that time that I'm still friends with now, that I've worked with over and over with here and there. And I worked, it was actually only for one day. It was a Friday, I believe. So it was going to be a Friday. This is big, huge, no, it's 2 days, excuse me. But anyway, I went in, I did the 2 days, and that was it. I drove home back to Charlotte, and Mark, I walked in the door of my place, and my phone rang, and it's the background supervisor for Lincoln saying, "Hey, we really enjoyed you being here and your work, and you're really nice. Would you like to come back?"
Wow.
I was like, "Well, yeah, sure. That sounds great." I was like, for a couple of days. She goes, "I'm not sure yet, but just pack enough to get you through a week." I was like, "Okay." And so I went back up there, and I was up there for 3 more weeks.
Oh, wow.
doing all kinds of everything, whatever they needed. I was punching hair into body parts,
Yeah.
all kinds of things, Because there's a scene where they dump amputated limbs into a hole.
Oh, wow.
And so we had taken all these realistic looking, limbs, and we were punching hair into them to make them, give them hair and everything. And so I was doing everything on that show, and it was a really great experience.
Damn, that's cool. Did you get to see Spielberg in action?
Oh yeah. No, I got to meet him. That was really fun. He was very nice, and I'll be honest, I was not on set very much for what we were doing. Spielberg doesn't like a lot of crew on set, like only the people that need to be there.
Yeah.
So for instance, I think there was on Lincoln, there was 30 makeup and 30 hair.
Wow.
So 30 makeup artists and 30 hair people thereabouts that were on that show. And we would rotate out. So it would be 5 makeup and 5 hair would go to set. And then in an hour or 2 or 3, whatever, they would come back and we would rotate, and it would just kind of go like that. So you do your work in the morning, and then a group of 5 people go to set.
What do you do in all the downtime?
Well,
you bring books. You listen to podcasts. I mean, I know there's got to be some down.
Well, if you can,
I've been on a few sets, and it seems like there's a lot of downtime.
Well, usually, if you're on set and everything, you're paying attention to what's going on.
Right.
I've learned to have 2 ears going on.
Yeah.
I'm having a conversation over here, and I hear this. I'm like, oh, wait a second, hold on. But you get used to all that kind of thing. But I guess and another thing I wanted to mention, one thing that I came to find out, or I've come to understand, is that we're all makeup artists and we're all hairstylists. And a lot of times people get very specific or particular about where they are in the chain of command.
Right. Yeah.
They want to be the department head, or they want to be the key, or they want to be whatever. But the fact of the matter is that almost everybody's being paid the same amount.
Oh, right.
The department head is obviously getting paid more than everybody else, but generally speaking, the key makeup artists and everybody underneath them are all getting paid the same amount.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I'm happy to be the key, but I'm also, I'm happy to be the department head when those opportunities come along. But it's also nice to have a job where you're doing background stuff or day playing actors or whatever, and you don't have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I can see that.
You just, you do your continuity, make sure they look good, and everything always matches, obviously, but you don't have all the extra responsibility.
Yeah.
And those are nice opportunities to have as well, because especially if you've been on a show for a long time, like when I was on Stranger Things for 7 months. And when I left that show, because that was a very challenging show to do just because of the schedule. And when I finished that show, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to have any responsibility after that show, because there was a lot going on. And so I just bounced around whoever needed me, and I was very lucky in that, I'd done some Marvel shows before that time. And so there was a couple Marvel shows that were happening at that time. And so I just jumped right on them.
So you're in Atlanta now, right?
I am. Yeah.
At what point? So what was your first? So you moved. I'm assuming you moved to Atlanta when everything shut down in North Carolina.
Correct.
What was your first job when you got down there?
Well, I was fully planning to get a job at Starbucks temporarily. Yeah. I was literally willing to do whatever, because I wasn't expecting. I didn't arrive in Atlanta just expecting, the doors to open and for them to invite me in. It's like, oh, we've all been waiting for you. Right. I wasn't expecting that at all. But over the months leading up to that, I had been in contact with several friends of mine who were here working, and they had said to me, listen, anytime if you end up deciding to come to Atlanta, please let me know. I can definitely put you to work. So I had a couple leads.
That's good.
And I'm thankful and happy to say that when I moved, I never got that job at Starbucks.
That's
You
great.
know, I went right into working on Vampire Diaries, I think it was.
Really, very cool.
Worked on that and just a little bit. And then other things were happening at the same time. And yeah, I just said, and then about that time, I did this movie Bolden, which was a kind of a funny movie. Not the movie's not funny as itself, but the situation is funny because this was the second time they were filming it. You know, they had shot it. They had shot it already before, several years before that, and the director and executive producer. I think the executive producer was like heir to the Hyatt
Wow.
fortune or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And so they just kept on throwing money at this movie, and you know, and so they shot it in Wilmington originally. A couple of years went by, and they decided they wanted to continue getting some more stuff from that. Well, when they went back to do the reshoots or to start shooting again, the main actor wasn't available anymore.
Oh wow.
It was Anthony Mackie, who is now, you know, Falcon on
Yeah.
all of the Marvel stuff. And he originally was playing Buddy Bolden in that film. And when they came back around and ready to do it, they didn't give him like any type of leeway or like advance notice. They just said, "Hey, by the way, you know, we're going to start that show back up, and you know, we'd love you to come and step back in. And we're going to do some reshoots." He goes, "Well, I'm not available." You know,
Oops.
they're like, "You're not?" You're like, "No, you know, I just you know, I'm doing this. I've got this doing this thing with Marvel, you know,
Yeah.
blah blah blah." Which I think at that point, I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember where his character was introduced, which film his character was introduced. We saw him a lot in Captain America: Winter Soldier, but oh, you know what? I think it was Ant-Man is where he originally comes in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we already had signed a contract or whatever, or had with Marvel, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do it." So they had to recast the role. So they recast the role and had to reshoot everything that actor was in.
Oh wow.
You know, and I mean, and it was so strange because they just kept on throwing money at this thing. We would shoot a scene, and then a couple of days later, they're like, "Yeah, we didn't like what we got. We're going to shoot it again." And we shoot it again, you know,
Wow.
or we would shoot one scene all day long, you know, which, you know, production schedule, you never do that, you know, not unless it's a scene that's supposed to like take place over a period of time or whatever. And they just kept on going and going and going. And I was on that film for 8 months, and I left before they finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I was on that film, and my good friend Robin Beauchesne was on it with me, and she was going on to she had just been hired to be the key makeup artist for Captain America: Winter Soldier.
yeah.
And so she's like, "Hey, you know, come back. Let's go back to Atlanta." And well, she's from LA, but she said, "Let's go to Atlanta, and you can come on that show with me." I was like, "That sounds great."
Yeah.
And well, you know, it wasn't, the show itself was actually a joy to work on. It wasn't that was not the issue. It was the fact that every Friday night I got onto a plane and I went home, and then every Sunday night I got back onto a plane and came back. So I was flying to Wilmington because we shot part of Bolden in Atlanta, but we shot the rest of it all in Wilmington on stages and things like that. And so it was cheaper for them to put me on a plane than it was to pay me my idle days of not working on Saturday and Sunday, and then my per diem and whatever else that it was going to be. It's cheaper for them to send me home for like barely 2 days, and then get back on a plane and come back than for me to stay over the weekend.
Maybe if they cut down some of that reshooting. the same scene
I know.
over and over again. They could have afforded to pay you.
I know, right? And I just got, that was just exhausting.
Yeah.
Going back and forth. Now all the LA people that were there, they were staying over the weekend because that didn't make any sense. But from here to Wilmington is like what, an hour flight at the most.
Yeah.
It's by the time you get up in the air, you're coming back down.
Oh yeah. It's almost like you can drive there faster almost.
Yeah, I did that one time, and I decided against that from then on.
Well, I guess Wilmington's a little farther out. I'm thinking from Charlotte to Atlanta is pointless almost to fly. But yeah, from Wilmington it's far.
Yeah, well, but from Wilmington, from Atlanta, it's 7 hours.
Yeah.
So I did that. I did that 1 week. Like I drove that. I did that on one stretch, and then I drove back, and then after that, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna. You guys can put me on a plane now.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
But I went from that, and I did Winter Soldier, and that was a really great experience, and that kind of started my whole Marvel. Before that, I'd done Iron Man 3, and they shot that in Wilmington as well, and so I was on that. I was the third makeup artist on that. Taking care of all the special effects with Kevin Haney, and then again on any of the background stuff or anything else that needed to happen.
Let's talk about special effects. I want to show you some of the stuff. Let's look at some of your shots and just give me like a brief description. So I'm going to kind of go through them. The ones
sure.
And let's just talk about those real quick. And then I want to talk about your YouTube channel before we end up having this in this thing. So let me do a screen share here. So I see my damn screen. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, you can see this?
I can.
Oh, hey, I did it right. It's only the second time I think I've shared my screen on Zoom, so I'm still kind of learning a little bit.
Yeah,
so I won't go through them all, but let's start off with this one, and then just kind of give me a little brief thing on what you did, because some of this stuff is crazy, man, that you guys are doing.
So this was a zombie minotaur from the most recent season of Legacies on CW.
Yeah.
And this character made an appearance in last season, but it wasn't a zombie at that point. It was just a regular minotaur. And this one's way cooler. And so everything. So the creature itself was all designed and created by Villalobos Effects, and that's the company that does all the effects for Legacies.
Right.
And then Mark Villalobos and myself, we put it all together.
How long does that take?
This one is 3 hours.
Damn.
Yeah.
Not as long as I thought. That's impressive.
Yeah. The whole process of everything is probably more like 4.
Right.
But we do it in stages, and so the whole process of the makeup and getting him dressed and all that kind of thing is all in total about 4 hours.
Still.
And that's a performer out of LA named Cheetah. He used to work for Cirque du Soleil, and he's a pretty awesome dude.
Cool name. Too.
And I wish I could remember his last name. It's probably something simple like
your
Smith.
name's Cheetah. You probably don't need a last name.
I know, right? Yeah. But he was great to work with.
Yeah, that's very cool. And this one. Yeah,
all right, so that is the same episode. Same episode as the zombie minotaur. We were calling the zombie Sphinx, and this makeup was originally applied by Heather Mages and she's gonna kill me that I don't remember her name. No, it's on the tip of my tongue. Kelsey something. I'm sorry, Kelsey. Your last name is escaped me right this second. Starts with a B. I know it starts with a B. Anyway, they did the original application on this, and then the next day we had another character was playing that they normally do, which is the necromancer is a major character in that show, and the two of them do that makeup on a regular basis, and so they need to do that makeup that particular day. So Mark and myself then did this makeup on the next time it played, which was like the next day or whatever it was.
Oh, wow.
It might have been the next week or whatever. But so we through pictures and stuff, we recreated it.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's pretty fun, pretty gnarly. I like all the detail and stuff on the cheeks and everything.
It's incredible. Okay, tell me about this one.
So this was this goes back. This is way back in my my salon days, I guess you could say. I was working for Modern Salon, and this was a promotional shoot for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of had a salon feel to it.
Yeah,
but just makeup so clean, and
that's what
really nice.
Thanks to Flash.
Yeah.
Flash and Photoshop. Although I will say that I was really happy with the makeup overall. It did, and she had great skin, and that's one of the reasons why I've kept this image in my portfolio all these years, is because it's not, to me personally, I don't think it's an image that's overly dated, even though it's at least more than 10 years old.
Yeah.
So
I think it's good because so many people don't understand how hard it is to do clean, nice makeup as opposed to like the heavy. Like it seems to me, at least looking at people, it's easier for makeup artists to do that heavy makeup and not as easy for them to do clean makeup that looks good.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I keep telling a lot of makeup effects artists, they're always, not always, I shouldn't say that. They are often just want to do special effects. They just want to do the creatures. They just want to do the zombies, all that kind of stuff. And they never learn or take the time to learn how to do beauty makeup and to do it really well. And what many of them who have done that will tell you is that it actually makes all of their other makeup better. Learning all the fine nuances of doing that stuff makes your creature makeups better, because it's softer and more delicate, and it looks better in the long run.
Yeah, I could easily see how that helps. This dude, this is crazy.
So this was for Walking Dead season 9, I think it was.
Season 810.
Yeah, season 9, I believe. And it was a hero walker for the day, and I thought it turned out really nice. And so I snapped a picture of it.
Is this like a bunch of individual pieces, or is this basically one kind of mass that fits over, and then you add stuff to blend it all in?
Yeah. Well, because of time, and because it's a zombie, it doesn't have to look pretty. So there's a lot of things in there that are naturally covered up because it's a zombie. Thank God.
Yeah.
You can mess up and it still looks okay.
Yeah. That's benefit of that.
Yeah. And so it's actually just, I believe, so it's a face piece that goes down to the neck, and then there's a back piece that wraps around the whole back of the head, and then the 2 ears are individually glued on, and then of course there's a lace wig that's put on at the end.
Right.
And then when we slime them up and make them look bad.
Yeah. Bad. All right, what's the deal with this one?
All right, so this was my gal for Stranger Things.
Okay.
This was my actress, Kara.
Yep.
And she played is it Mike's mom? Yeah, she played Mike's mom on the show.
I've got to watch that show. I've made it into like 4 episodes of the first season, and I was watching it while I had downtime on some jobs, and then have not gotten back to it, but I'm definitely interested in going back to watching it. It's
a good show. It's fun, So she plays the character of Karen, which is Mike's mom, and she's a lovely actress and awesome to work with, and her character hates her life and hates her husband and loves her son but hates her life, and you start to see a little bit of that in the second season, which is where this comes from, and then in the third season even more of that happens, and so on and so forth.
Oh, let's get into
so this
Wesley
just came
Snipes,
out,
man.
this just came out. This is from coming to America.
Yeah.
Coming to America. And I was brought on to take care of Wesley. They originally they would have liked, I did it basically, did this makeup for him for a week, for the first week of shooting, I believe. And then I was already committed on another show, which at this time would have been Ozark.
Nice.
And so I did this for the first week or so. And then I unfortunately had to leave. And then at that point, the department head took over doing his makeup. So that's why you will see this makeup also on her Instagram. So I had someone direct message me that.
Oh, she was using your stuff? Kind of
no,
thing?
the other way around.
They
thought it was the other way around.
Stop using her stuff.
Yeah. Because, well, that's because we both took pictures of him in the trailer.
Absolutely.
And so they look very similar.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, actually it was the look was all designed by her.
Right.
So the wig was designed by the hairstylist, and then the facial hair and the general look was designed by the department head. And then I just took her lead of what she wanted. And then when I left, she, instead of giving it over to someone else, she just took it over herself.
Right. How was he to work with?
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, really nice man, very respectful. He sat down in the chair, he put his head back, he closed his eyes, and he was there. And I finished doing what I was doing, and I was like, okay, Wesley, I'm all done. And he goes, okay. And he opens his eyes and leans forward, and looks into the mirror, and he goes, yeah, could we do a little bit more smudgy, on the eyes? I'm like, yeah, we could do that. So
yeah.
Do that, and he wanted his brows a little done heavier than what we really wanted to do. But he, in a lot of his scenes, he's wearing these big, huge glasses.
Oh yeah.
So you couldn't see it anyway. but I thought it was a nice look. And of course he's wearing a beard on this as well. It was fun. He was great. He was a little bit more, once we got to set, he was a little bit more animated,
right?
Because he was, he's around the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
And and obviously Eddie's there, and Eddie is Eddie.
Right.
And on one of the days, all those guys were there. Blanking on what's his face's name. Morgan.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan. No, Tracy Morgan.
Yeah.
So Tracy Morgan is there, and of course he lights up the entire room with his presence. So amongst all this, so it was, and he's trying to be around all these guys. He knows them. He knows all those guys really well. They're all really good friends, and so it was fun. But he was always very respectful and very cool, and always said thank you very much. And that's really all we asked for.
Yeah, that's very cool. What's going on with this thing, man?
All right, so this is the piggy makeup from the second season, the very last episode of the second season of Legacies. Excuse me. This there were originally going to be 2 more episodes, I believe, after this, but the world shut down because of the crazy pandemic.
Yeah.
So this ended up being the last episode of that season. Excuse me. So again, another makeup designed and created by Villalobos Effects, and then applied by Mark and myself, and played by a lovely actor named Danny, who has been in freaking everything, man. He's a great guy and was such a pleasure to work with. What's really cool though is that he's been in prosthetics like that a lot throughout his career. So he had a lot of experience doing it.
Right.
So he was very comfortable working in it, and also, working through it, expressing through it, which a lot of actors, if they've never worn prosthetics, and like on this makeup here, I mean, that's a lot of rubber on him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so
yeah, that's impressive, man. Very cool. What
this
we
is
got
my
going here?
this is my lovely friend Haley Lovett, and she needed some headshots done.
Okay.
and this was some of her headshots that were different. So obviously this is not one that she would use for her
Right.
For her book or whatever, but we just thought that it was really really beautiful. And I mean,
yeah.
you can't take a bad you can't take a bad photo of her anyway. And so yeah, I just really loved it, and I thought it was a really great image of her.
I mean, just the way you can go from this that we started off with to this is very impressive. I mean, you definitely well-rounded in every kind of way. I mean,
well, when I was in school studying, my main instructor, he would always like hammer on us about being well-rounded. He's like, it's like because a lot of the guys and some of the girls, which they wanted to just do special effects,
right?
And he's like, listen, if you can, that's fine and good, but if you can do everything, you're going to work more often.
Yeah.
And that's been the case, throughout my entire career. There's been times when I was working and other people weren't, because I could do stuff that they couldn't do.
Right.
And that goes both ways. I mean, there's been many times when I've been hired to do special effects, because the beauty people couldn't do it. Yeah. Or maybe I should say couldn't do it. They certainly can do it. They're just not comfortable doing it and don't have the experience doing it. A lot of this stuff comes down to just gaining the experience doing it and doing it over and over. And, and then you get really used to doing it, and you don't stress about it anymore, which thankfully, I think I'm after all these years, I think I'm kind of there at this point where I don't really get stressed out about the work or the work anymore.
Yeah.
We just kind of do it. And, especially a lot of these makeups are very planned out. There's steps. I mean, anything that's done for Marvel is very, very planned. They go through lots and lots of tests and designs. And then even when it's time to do the actual makeup, there's like not a journal. There's like a photo book,
right? Almost
like a PowerPoint on like this application, this goes on, and then this goes on, and then this, you do this layer. It's all, they want it because they want it to look exactly the same every time.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those makeups are very, very challenging. I think probably one of the most challenging ones is the Nebula makeup in the Marvel series, because that's all interlocking pieces.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And then it all has to be blended together, and it has to look mechanical, and so an airbrush doesn't look mechanical. It's right. Like, it's blurry so that makes things a little bit easier, but you just get used to doing it. Oh, yeah. Danny Woodburn was the actor that played the little pig. Sorry. Right, I wanted to give him a shout out because he was just so fantastic. His whole role on that episode was supposed to be smaller, but he was so incredible under the makeup that the director and the producers kept giving him stuff to do and kept on giving him stuff to say.
Oh, that's cool.
He was incredible.
All right. So you told me you're getting ready to start a YouTube channel. Is that right?
Yeah. So, so I'm starting a YouTube channel here in the near future. I think it's going to be partially a podcast, kind of like with what you and I are doing today, where I'll be interviewing different makeup artists, different actors, different directors, not just about makeup, but about just the entire kind of process in general. Right. And then I'll also be doing makeup tutorials on it, and kind of blending it all together. So it's going to be a lot of everything. I mean, it's going to be makeup centric,
Right.
but it's going to drop into other areas as well, because I'm also a huge fan of pop culture and other things that kind of fade into that, anime and that kind of thing. So it'll be kind of pretty much anything that kind of falls into that that category. And I'll have different guests that will kind of join me from time to time. Then once things are safe and we can start meeting together, then it'll be more of like a proper like interview type of thing.
Right.
Although when it's done well, though, this kind of process of doing it like the way that you and I are doing it is pretty effective.
Yeah, I think it works well, because I started off doing this in person, and
right.
Even if the pandemic hadn't hit, this tends to be a way to get more people to do it, because I don't have to travel to Atlanta or LA or New York to do them, or I don't have to go say to LA and try and do 10 of these in, a week, kind of a thing, because some people just can't do it. So you have I have one I was supposed to do tomorrow. Well, she's got booked on a shoot. And she's like, can we push it to Thursday? And if I had been in town in New York just to do that thing, and then it was flying out that night, I'd be like, I can't, now I missed it. So I kind of like the Zoom thing. If it's something where I can do it in person, I think it's really cool, because it's nice to be face to face. But at the same time, this whole Zoom thing or whatever works out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as the other person has a nice camera or something.
As long as it's decent, basically for me, as long as it's not horrible lighting and your Wi-Fi doesn't shut down. So you're talking, then you just go.
And you just freeze. What's fun is to do that on purpose on someone.
Hey, it's nice to. And yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've got that, and then I've also got a little hobby thing that I'm doing, which is some version of a cooking channel.
Oh, cool.
And that'll be obviously something completely different. But over the shutdown and the pandemic, and not having income and having to get a bartending job for the first time in I don't know, 20 years or whatever. Maybe not that long, but anyway,
wow.
Having to do something like that in order to, make ends meet, and realizing, how fragile my job situation was. If something were like that to happen, I started thinking about, well, gosh, what can I do that allows me more freedom, that I don't have to worry about that so much. And doing a YouTube channel or something like this, I can be anywhere. That's the other thing, is I can be anywhere in the world and do this.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about with the cooking side of things. That's something that I would like to maybe eventually bring into it as well. Cooking, wherever you are. Cause I like the idea of just being able to kind of go where you want to go, and all you need is a good knife and a good pan.
I think that's a good idea, because you see so many cooking shows where people in their kitchen in the same space doing it with the the kitchen and all that stuff. If you do one where it's, hey, I'm in LA right now, or I'm in God knows where, Pennsylvania or whatever, and here's how I can cook while I'm in these different locations, I think that's killer.
Sure. Yeah. And I love to travel, and the being over the past, it's more than a year now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's been tough not being able to really go anywhere. I mean, I've traveled up to Charlotte to visit my family. But even this last Christmas, I traveled up there, and I hadn't seen them since the Christmas before.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I was planning to come down. I saw them at Christmas, and then I obviously would have seen them at Easter.
Yep.
That didn't happen. So I didn't get to see them last Easter. And I didn't even realize that it had been a year.
Yeah.
And that just kind of comes through. I thought that's the other nice thing though about technology, is you're able to talk to them,
yes.
and see them. And so then it doesn't feel like you're so far away.
Yeah,
but you can't hug a camera. So
that's true.
well, I mean, you can, but that's a different kind of
It's a little
show.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different kind of thing. They have websites for that kind of
But
thing.
if it really gets bad, I guess you can start that.
Yeah, right. Oh man, I used to joke with people. They would say, "Oh, what do you do?" It's like, I work in the film industry, but only from the waist down.
It's true. People are like, oh, really? Oh, wait. Okay.
Oh, whoa, wait.
Right, yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Speaking of that, tell me what would be the strangest or most interesting thing you've come across since you've worked in this whole business? Or what would be strange or interesting to somebody who's never been in it? Because I've finally come to the conclusion that when you're in it all the time, something that may be really weird to other people, it's just like, that's just a daily thing for me.
Yeah. Well, and meeting very famous people is weird.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. It's like sometimes I'm never really nervous about working with them. But I might be a little bit nervous about meeting them.
Yeah.
Because, and it only happens the second they walk in the door and shake my hand, or in this point, elbow bump, whatever. Then suddenly they're a real person to me. And so all the nerves go out of the door. So I don't really worry about that kind of thing. And
it's the nicest person you've ever worked, celebrity. Say name.
Hands down, my favorite person that I worked with was Kate Winslet.
Really?
I worked with her on a movie called 999. And I'll let the audience make their own decision about the movie. Yeah. But she was lovely, and her performance was lovely. And her makeup was being done by my friend Kim Jones, and so she was just lovely to be around and work with, and she liked to poke fun at me, and she found out that she found out that I had a crush on her back in the day of Titanic.
Yes.
And so she decided to give me a hard time about it. And I'm like, Kate, what young man of a certain age didn't have a crush on you at that particular time? But yeah, she's just a really, really lovely person. She's about as non-Hollywood as you can possibly imagine. And just really genuine and nice and funny and naughty.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Cool to hear.
She just speaks her mind and says what she says, and it's funny.
I like those kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So she was lovely. And I don't really have a long list of people that I've worked with that I did not enjoy working with. I mean, I have a list, but I don't have, it's not a long list, and generally speaking, what I found that the people that are, especially the people that are uber famous, they're usually famous for a reason. They're captivating. People want to be around them. People want to hire them. They want to work with them. Because for a reason. It's because they walk into a room and they the room turns.
Right.
Not just because of their beauty or their handsomeness. Is that a word? Handsomeness? Anyway,
we'll go with it, yes.
We'll go with it. Yeah. if you're a fellow, it's your charisma and it's what you bring to the table. And so I find that those people that really have a wonderful career and are able to be famous like that for a long period of time, like a George Clooney or whatever, they're generally speaking really wonderful people. Otherwise they just fall off the face of the earth.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't matter how big you are. If you're difficult to work with and cause issues and cause problems, eventually you'll just stop working.
Yeah.
Or you just won't work as much.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So
I can see that for sure.
Dude,
this has been great. I think we're hitting about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know that. I noticed that. You might have to.
We could keep talking for a while.
Might have to edit it down for content or whatever. But was there anything else that was on your mind, or? Man,
I mean, you hit it all. I mean, I was interested a little bit about Ozark. How's that?
Okay. Ozark is amazing. Wonderful show to work on. Jason Bateman is an awesome dude. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I've heard that from multiple people.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of, as far as what goes to like executive producers that are directors that are also the actor. I mean, he's the real deal. And I've never seen him personally. I've never seen him step out of character. He's consistent.
Right.
Even when he's giving you the what for.
Right.
Never happened to me. Never happened to me, but I saw it happen one time. And it was
sometimes
like,
you need it. Sometimes
I was like, that was the nicest whatever I've ever seen, where he finishes like telling them the situation and they walk away from it feeling good, because
that's an incredible thing to be able to do right there.
Well, yeah, it's like, you're inspiring people. I mean, even if you have somebody that really, really messed up badly, the worst thing you can do is, raise your voice and get all like loud and be condescending to them, because they're just gonna shut down and not, want to work for you. But if you can turn it around and talk to them like a real person and then, make them feel good about what they're doing and the whole thing. And they walk away from the thing, that walk away from it, like with a smile, or at least being encouraged. That's a very different kind of thing. So yeah, Ozark was really great. And my last big thing that I did that just premiered was Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
So we did that over the past year and a half, thanks to COVID. And because we had a lockdown, and for a good, let's see, we shut things down around March 7th or so. And then we started back up in September. So like 6 months, something like that.
Damn.
And then we went back to that, and that was really cool. It's I was the department head of the second unit. So that was all the stunt stuff, all of the anything they couldn't get during the regular production or the regular main unit, they would send over to us. So we were doing all the stunts and any extra stuff that they needed that they couldn't get. So it's actually kind of fun watching the show, because there's a lot of stuff that I actually wasn't there, like on the main unit doing.
Right.
So I wasn't, I've read the scripts. I know what the story is supposed to be, but I wasn't there when we were shooting it. So it's still kind of fun for me, because I'm watching it. It's almost like watching a dream.
Yeah.
Or because I know what's going on, but I wasn't there for a lot of it because I was in stunt world.
Right.
There's on the second episode of the show, which I encourage everyone to check it out, because it's really good and has a very different tone than any other Marvel movie or show that I've seen. Much more serious.
Oh wow.
It's much more like, it's much more serious kind of tone to it. And it's a little bit more adult too. Not too far, but a little bit more adult as well. But there's a long scene where they're fighting on top of these trucks as they're driving. And I swear that was 4 months of my life just right there. just doing that stuff, man.
It's amazing to me how little gets shot in such a long period of time.
Well, no, we shoot tons and tons and tons. It's just what they decide to use.
Well, yeah, because I was, I've been on a few sets, and you sit there and you're there for hours and hours on set watching them do stuff and shooting, and then you see the final product and it's 15 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that was like 5 hours.
And that truck, the truck sequence is actually, for that kind of sequence, is actually pretty long. But that was made up of a lot of different elements of actually really being on a truck driving down the interstate, to being on a like a gimbal where the truck is like moving and it's got a green screen or a blue screen behind them.
Right.
And other elements all mixed in together. And so, it's an interesting mix of all that, and it's fun seeing it all kind of put together finally.
Yeah.
Because in the script it literally says, and they fight on trucks. And that's like it kind of says, it just has a little description, and they fight on trucks.
Okay.
And then it's like, and then such and such gets thrown off, and that's all it'll say, and then whatever happens in between that is all designed by, by production and the stunt team and what's going to happen. And I mean, that's almost always the case in film and in any type of film and television. It'll literally just say, and they fight. And then the fight sequence itself is then choreographed into what is supposed to happen,
Right.
And then you'll have the thing is, and then so-and-so picks up the gun, that'll be, there'll be spots like that.
Right.
But the actual action and how it happens is not scripted. Usually. I mean,
Wow.
maybe in a Tarantino film. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he likes to talk about everything.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Have you ever worked with him?
No, I haven't. I was going to work on The Hateful Eight. I got called to work on that, but I had a conflict and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of unfortunate. But I was on. That would have been when I was on Winter Soldier, I believe.
Okay.
On Captain America: Winter Soldier. I think that's when that was. I was definitely on something at the time, so I couldn't take the job.
Yeah.
And that was in
Tarantino's
Louisiana.
probably not something you just turn down and go, I'm not doing anything, but I don't want to do that.
Well, I knew the department head, and so it was nice to get the call and everything, but I just unfortunately just couldn't work it out.
Yeah.
And I was already busy doing stuff here, so it's like I'm probably going to see you in a month or two anyway when you finish this show and go on to something different, which is exactly what happened. So
that's cool.
Because she does a lot of Heba Thorstetter is her name, and she does a lot of stuff for Marvel as well. And so she was doing Spider-Man 2, I think, is what she was doing. I can't remember the time frame if she did that after Spider-Man 2 or if she did it before. Yeah. But I'd either recently saw her or saw her right after that.
Damn. Dude, this has been killer. It's been really
cool.
Fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for doing it. It's been great having you on here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Hopefully I'll have the YouTube thing up and going pretty soon. The main thing I'm waiting for right now is I need to get a set of nice lights to really light things up properly.
You'll have these GVM, I think it's called Great Video Maker LEDs. They're cheap.
Yeah, I've actually looked at something like that on Amazon. It was they're LED and they're multi-toned.
Yeah, so I can control the temperature, I control the brightness and all that on it. It's really cool.
And
$200.
And they're like $250 or something like that. You know, but all in due time. It's one of these crazy things of after not working for several months and things like that. There's a bit of like a uptake.
Oh, absolutely.
So trying to get things back to normal and so it's a process, but we'll all get there.
All right, dude. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you.